Welcome to the Coming Home Well podcast with your guest host, Tish Hevel, CEO and founder of the Brain Donor Project. Join Tish as she talks to veterans and veteran caregivers about the importance of brain donation to help researchers learn more about brain injuries and diseases that affect our veteran community. Now, here's your host, Tish Hevel.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. And my guest is Cody Bates. Cody, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to start a little while ago. I'm wondering about your decision to become a service member. When and why did that happen?
That happened because my senior year of high school is when September 11th happened. Obviously, that was impactful. And also, I'd had both my grandfathers and uncles had served in World War II, so it kind of become a family affair at that time. So, with a little bit of both of those combined, I joined as soon as I hit 18. It took a little while because when I graduated, I was 17, so I had to wait a little bit before I could join up.
You got to wait till you're legal anyway, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard from quite a few people though that September 11th was quite a motivating factor to become involved. And then tell me about your service. Where were you stationed? Did you get deployed? What happened?
So I signed up as a military police officer, followed kind of in Dad's footsteps because he was a cop. So I ended up at Fort Stewart, Georgia. That's where I spent my entire 6.5 years. I deployed to Afghanistan on my final deployment. Before that, I had 2 deployments to Iraq also.
Oh wow. So you were deployed 3 times
Yes,
total? Okay. And were you injured?
several times.
Tell me about him.
The first time was actually the first firefight we were in. I received shrapnel from a round ricocheting off the vehicle into my neck, and then um, as far as the rest of it goes, there was 4 IEDs total, and then I'd also received shrapnel from um, a mortar round going off near our bunker too.
Wow, you got kind of beat up then, huh?
Yeah, it was no worse for the wear.
Okay. Um, so 6 years, then you came home. Um, and did any of those injuries make it difficult for you to reassimilate? Was it tough to come home?
Um, at first they weren't too bad. I just started developing tremors in my left arm, which was a little concerning. But a lot for the longest time, I had some of that built up in the military, and they were chalking it up to nerve damage from the shrapnel through my neck. Um, and I had like a little bit more difficulty, like recalling information and remembering new things. But it wasn't hadn't been extreme at that point yet. It was only slightly noticeable.
And I'm assuming this was from exposure to blast.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. So then things got worse.
Yeah, as the years progressed, all these symptoms progressed with it.
And then did you find yourself getting depressed?
Um, yes, definitely. It was a big factor of what is going on. Because if you look at a lot of the literature with TBIs, most of the literature out there says within 6 months, most things should clear up. There's not a lot out there, and there's still not a lot out there this day talking about the more of the long-term effects. So there was a lot of that, and then the other big issue was this happens a lot and gets missed a lot. My third ID had actually ruptured and damaged my pituitary really, really bad. I wasn't producing testosterone on my own, so my body was slowly running out of it bit by bit, and that actually caused major depression.
I had never heard of that, Cody. I didn't know that was a thing, but it is, huh?
Yes, I ran into several other service members who had that same issue.
From blast.
Yep. Yeah, the
Wow.
pituitary is really sensitive. It kind of just hangs there like a punching bag, and unfortunately, it takes the hit
Takes a hit.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then it's not something they routinely test for?
No, because normally while you're in the service, especially you're physically fit and you're getting the exercise, your testosterone tends to be high begin with, and it's not something a lot of doctors think about checking on a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old. So
Yeah.
it gets overlooked a lot.
That'd be upsetting. That would be upsetting because you'd start to feel like, what is going on with me? And were there other symptoms that got worse?
Um, yeah, the ability to retain new information became a lot worse. It
Mm.
takes a lot of effort now. I had I did the workforce for a little while, and then I wanted to take advantage of my GI Bill, and I got out and did some college. I attempted, because I do well with the medical field. I do well with working with people in the medical field. Um, I attempted to pick that field. I attempted to be a therapist in that field, but unfortunately, I was not able to retain anatomy and physiology as fast as courses required. Actually,
Man,
it made me um, physically ill, like with headaches and migraines, just trying to cram everything in there at that speed.
trying to concentrate too hard
Yeah.
at an intensive level. And those are hard classes if you're not struggling with anything,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? So that's when I'm not surprised that that would crop up. So you sought help.
Yes. I sought help. I went tried to go through the VA system, but the early VA system was wholly unprepared for TBI. A lot of it still kind of is, and I had ran out of a lot of just bad luck with that. Um, it took a long time, but I would say 2016, I believe, maybe 17. I'd finally a new doctor actually came into our region for neurology. Dr. Roberts. He has been a life send for me. He actually did his training at the oh, I believe it's the Virginia one. He did it at the polytrauma centers, where they actually have a lot more in-depth training for people who are actually exposed to blast injuries. So he had a lot more thought and just a lot more experience running into it. So he wasn't like a lot of the other doctors who just didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, there
So
has
he's really helped. And his other thing was always that he was always open to looking at new ideas of treatment.
that's good. So if you're doing some reading on your own and you can bring things up to him, he was open.
Yes, yes. So like with him, we did well part of the if I have a lot of physicality. So while the mental issues were one thing, a lot more of my symptoms actually became more physical. So the tremors became spasticity, and they became myoclonic tremors, and it became a full body issue. Um,
Mm.
Especially with spasticity, I've had a lot of different treatments. He's helped me along with that. Um, the biggest thing like that though is he's like I said open to alternative treatments. So I've went to and done dry needling, which has helped me a ton. It's a lot better than being on heavy pain meds or anything like that. So
Sure
it's a great
is.
alternative therapy for spasticity.
That's awesome. So that was helpful to you.
Yes.
That's
The other
interesting.
big thing is battling depression, which is extremely common, and especially with TBIs, it's common to be where medications don't work too well. He helped actually me get that. So I don't know if you've seen it before or heard of it, but that stellate ganglion block.
I have, but tell us about it. Tell us about it, because that's it's a surgical procedure and it's kind of an interesting one.
It is. It's kind of scary though if you just kind of hear the details of it.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll brace ourselves, but
It
I would
it,
like to hear about it.
definitely makes you nervous when you go and get it too. So it is a technique where basically they take a big needle and go through the front side of your neck and X-ray guided, of course,
Yes.
and they reach back to the stellate ganglion, which is a nerve in the back of the neck, and
Way at
it
the
works with the
base, right?
yes,
Way at the base in the
yes,
back?
way at the
Okay, so they
base.
reach through
Mhm.
everything to get to it. Go ahead.
Yes, and then they inject basically an anesthetic back there. Obviously, immediate effects are you're going to feel kind of a little lightheaded a little bit. For me, if it works keep really well, they like I had a droopy eye for
Mm.
about 6 hours.
No.
Um, it's different, and it'll make you feel a little different. For me, it was kind of like a little bit of a buzz drinking kind of feeling for a short little while, but the long term effects, and then obviously they recommend you do two, and which I did. So in about several weeks apart, um, long-term effects were pretty amazing on it. So for me, it was a huge, probably like a 90% reduction in suicidal ideation. Um,
Oh, that's
a lot of the
tremendous.
negative voices that you hear and you argue with yourself with are gone. Even when that stuff does come back up, it's not like it used to be. It's very easy to dismiss. I don't have
Wow. How long
the
ago,
long
Cody?
planning episodes.
How long
Um,
ago did you have it done?
I believe it would have been a year and a half,
Okay.
2 years, I think, since the
Okay.
final one.
Okay. So it's been a good thing for you.
Yes. Mhm.
I've heard people describe it as once it starts to kick in, it just feels like a lift.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a very good description.
Okay, so it's the sort of thing you would recommend. It's um, mainly for depression, I thought, or
Hmm.
but is that where you saw the best results, or was it, did you feel like you could then, like your memory was getting better, your ability to retain information was getting better, or what was the most significant?
It was mostly just the depression. I wish it
Okay.
helped memory, but just helping with the depression and the just the hyper awareness and everything that comes with that too is good enough for it.
That's awesome. I'm glad you found a treatment that worked for you. Some people bounce around for a while with different things. And this doctor did he perform it or did he send you to a different neuro?
He sent me to a different facility since it's such a very finite procedure. So luckily,
Yeah.
the area I'm around, this guy does that kind of stuff all day long. So
Wow. So he's
definitely want a
pleased.
doctor with steady hands.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And you don't want somebody who's done it for the very first time.
Hmm.
So that's another thing. But I'm so glad it worked for you. And then this doctor, I'm sure, is very pleased with your results, right?
Yes, yeah, it's he's something he's used to further along with other patients too. So
Excellent. Thanks for being out there and taking one for the team, as they say, right? So good for
yeah.
you. So, did you do any kind of talk therapy?
I did some talk therapy. It's good. It definitely helps, especially after the block, because you can work through stuff a little bit better. You don't have more of the depression kicking in after the discussions.
That's nice. That's nice. I would think you could be able to see things a little more clearly rather than just feeling like you had vented and everything's awful, because that
Hmm.
sometimes happens, if you
Yeah.
don't have the. That's great. So, okay, so I'm going to bring this over to brain donation now. Is it something that you have thought about?
Yeah. For me, it's pretty much a must for me. When I was suffering from all those symptoms, I did a lot of. I'm a researcher by nature. I love to do research and everything.
Good for you.
That's why my degree I actually ended up doing it in paralegal because legal research.
I hear you. I hear you. I find that stuff fascinating too, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I did a lot of research on the signs and symptoms, and everything started popping up, pointing to just certain more long-term neurological conditions. One of the conditions that seemed to vibe a lot with it was chronic traumatic encephalopathy, the basically the
CTE.
yeah the
Yeah,
football disease, what most people know it as.
so they say.
Um, and at the time when I was looking it up, uh, Goldstein had actually just released a paper not too long beforehand. He's one of the Boston researchers. He had released a paper where he had exposed mice to blast injuries and then tested them for this, and he had found it in all the mice that he had actually exposed. So, well, the ones that survived the initial blast injury, a lot of
Yeah,
them actually survive.
yeah, I believe that.
So it kind of started pushing more towards the thought of looking for that actually occurring in military. So I started researching like how to detect it in living brains. Well, it's currently not
It's
detectable. You got to
hard.
do it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard. You got to wait until basically you passed away.
Hmm.
A lot of research, though, I did find that there is currently in production. They are testing a radio tracer that does detect it in living brains. It's
Hmm.
basically a modified version of the Alzheimer's radio tracer that's out now.
Hmm.
So I contacted a few scientists just to see if they were willing to guinea pig me on it.
Hmm.
And I got lucky enough. I reached out to Dr. Dickstein and Dr. Gandy. They were doing it as part of the Alzheimer's research, the Alzheimer's Fund research.
Uh-huh.
They were working on NFL, and he hadn't been interested about looking at soldiers. So I discussed it with him, told him all the signs, symptoms, and everything I'd been exposed to. He became interested, and so he went on ahead and tested me. Um, Shortly after that, we kind of had some discussion further about that, about what he'd be looking for if he kept going military, and then all the final 10 people he actually went through in that experiment ended up being all veterans.
Wow. So you were able to join the study
Hmm.
and you ran the tracer?
Yep.
Tell me about the results.
Um, well, you can say you can kind of see them because I saw them for the first time too. This is part of the
On
experiments.
a,
You're not really supposed to see it. They kind of give you the results afterwards, um,
yeah,
but you don't really ever see them. But
right.
I was a little bit different case because they actually had me go in and they recorded it for 60 minutes. So
No
yeah,
way.
yeah. So the
Wow.
actual yeah. So they aired it then. So that was actually the first time I saw the results in person too. But
Wow.
it's
So you got to see
it's
the actual
interesting.
imaging. Yeah.
Yes. Hmm.
And so they're able to diagnose CTE in you because of this device,
Hmm.
whereas they hadn't really been able to diagnose that until postmortem examinations up to now.
Yes.
Wow.
But this is still clinical trial, so
Right, I
it's
understand.
obviously it has to wait full FDA approval. And then as the years have gone by, um, the actual mixture and stuff they've been using is actually improved. So
That's good.
the difference between now and 5 years ago is massive with the quality.
The quality of what they're able to detect, the quality of the imaging, all
The
that
quality of
stuff.
the imaging, and then the quality of the, 'cause, like when the first came out, there were certain areas where it would attach to in the brain no matter what. So you
Hmm.
just have to take those areas out. The problem with that is the areas it sticks onto the most are areas that tend to be damaged more from IED blasts. So
Yeah, so that's counterproductive, but they were
hmm,
able to improve it.
yes.
That's amazing. So brain donation is a part of that study. You committed to, they're doing this while you're alive. And
Hmm.
do they continue to do it? Is it ongoing or is that part of the study concluded for you?
That part of the studies concluded that if there had been more money and research to it, they'd like to have done a little more long-term studies, especially on all the people that did test positive on it. So
Sure.
that way they could have more of a track progression rate,
Yeah,
especially. Um, but the funding just isn't currently there for that right now.
got it.
That's why the brain donation is extremely important with that, because
Critical.
yes, it's critical because
Yeah,
part of the FDA process is you have to prove that it worked correctly, and
yeah.
the only way
And
to do that is to examine the brain afterwards.
right, right. Although they kind of got some of the information, but this will be the final validation, which is
Yes.
awesome. And you know what? I'm sure you know this since you've done so much research, but I wasn't aware that blast injury creates a whole different kind of scar tissue than a physical brain injury. Well, it's still physical injury, but you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying.
Yeah, it creates the
So,
astroglial scarring.
right. So that'll be interesting to see not only where that is and what it's done, but also because of all the other stuff, what it's done to your white matter,
Hmm.
because that's a factor as well. And man, that is so cool that you did that. I mean, there's good and bad. Now you're walking around with CTE. So, does it make you a little bit? Most people don't have the luxury of knowing that about themselves. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
People that have had injuries or people that have played the sports are like, oh, I got to watch out for some stuff. But now I really got to watch out for some stuff. So what are you
Hmm.
watching out for? And does it make you paranoid?
Um, I mean, when it kind of hits home, I mean, it's a little bit harsher. I mean, it's not a great medical sentence to get on you. But at the same time, like, I was already suffering from all those issues for years anyway. So to me, it was actually, it was better to know because it's an answer.
Mm-hmm.
So, and with an
Yeah,
answer, I can at least know if this is what's coming, this is what I can do to make my quality of life better over the years.
there you go. How old a guy are you, Cody?
I always have trouble remembering my age off the cuff. 38.
38. It's okay. I try to forget mine too, so I totally know where you're coming from on that. Um, I'm sure that it's been incredibly important to have a supportive partner through all of this stuff. And I don't have to be the one to tell you how fortunate you are in that regard, right?
Oh,
D-
yes, yes.
Yeah. Does she let you know when she thinks you might need to focus on a certain thing?
Sometimes I'm pretty good about staying focused still. So mine's
I'm not
more of
surprised.
mine's
Yeah,
more of just forgetfulness. So I need somebody to help me remember things. So she's always
yeah.
been my big key help in remembering appointments and like or what I need to say in appointments. Like the night before, I just went to Dr. Roberts the other day. The night before, we sat down and talked about what I need to discuss there and wrote some stuff down so I could bring with me.
It's important for anybody, whether or not
Hmm.
you have trouble remembering things. Um, are so you're gonna in a kind of a long-term relationship. That sounds weird with Dr. Roberts, right? He's
Yes.
continuing to work with you, and he's gonna
Hmm.
follow your progress. And if and when you do start seeing symptoms of CTE, because it might, because of the block and some other things you've done, you might not be as symptomatic as the next guy. Is that possible?
Let's see, mine is a little more physical. So because there is a couple different types of CTE. So there is a
Okay.
rare type that that they found in a few football players called CTEM,
Hmm.
uh, which it tends to not just hit the brain, but it goes into the spinal cord. Um, so it
Hmm.
causes more like the movement disorder things that I have, some more like the
Gotcha.
Parkinsonomas, the spasticity, like which mine is in such extreme that I actually have a backlift and pump in put in me now, so to cut that back. And
Yeah.
I'm also on Parkinson's medicines to slow down the spasticity and dystonic reactions. So
Gotcha.
because I every few weeks I'll have a new muscle group lock up in the dystonia,
Oh,
and
isn't
it'll
that
stay locked.
fun?
It stays locked. Well, luckily, it used to stay locked until the muscle tore. But between the
Oh.
baclofen pump and the Parkinson's med, it stays locked for about 5 to 6 days, and then I can go back to
Oh,
using it partially. So
dude.
my stuff's unfortunately a little more physical.
Yeah.
As as far as the cognitive, the biggest things I suffer is just
The memory.
extreme forgetfulness and memory issues,
Yeah.
speech issues. A lot of that's been is basically dependent on how I treat everything else. So, um, like another thing that a lot of veterans probably with TBIs don't know, after your first one, you have an increased chance of developing sleep apnea. Two or more, you probably do have sleep apnea. Um, like we never
Injuries?
knew,
Two
thought
or
I
more injuries? Is that what you
yeah,
mean?
two or
Yeah,
more
yeah, yeah.
blast injuries, you have extreme
Yeah.
chance of having it. Every, me and my soldiers that were two or more all have sleep apnea.
Yeah.
Didn't realize I had it at first. I never snored. I don't snore. Even when I
Huh.
went and did my sleep study, I think they said it was 6 minutes is all I snored for the whole night.
Huh.
But I
That's
had
unusual.
extreme, I had
Yeah.
severe sleep apnea though.
How could because you were waking a lot, or because you were having episodes that they were detecting?
A lot of episodes. So with the TBI, it's more common to have a lot more uh, hypoxias where you're just not
Yeah.
breathing enough
Yeah.
during your
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah.
But I was waking up about 5 or 6 times a night too. So
Wow. Dude, you've been through it. And can I just tell you, when you just mentioned before that sometimes there's speech issues, I was like, you're managing very well. I mean,
I have to talk very slowly.
well, it doesn't feel that way. So you're doing a great job of staying on top of some of these things that you're aware affect you. So, okay, so you're going to donate your brain. Did you
Mhm.
feel funny about that?
Actually, no, not at all. That
Good.
was one of the few things that didn't even think twice about it.
Good. That's been my experience too, just so you know. It's like once people understand how important that is, which obviously you do, any like, I'm going to use a clinical term here, hinkiness they have about that kind of goes away.
Hmm.
And I should mention to anybody who's watching that, your wife just stuck her head in and said she wants to donate her brain, and can I send some information about that? And I can't tell you how important that is, for many reasons. And so I'm glad to have the chance to talk to a military guy about the importance of having people you love also consider donating their brains. They need they call them unaffected controls, and who knows if that's what any of us will be by the time we die. But they need all kinds of brains. That's very, very clear. And so, I love to be able to tell people, that you may have a certain disorder, or you may have a certain injury that has affected you, and that makes you personally want to do this. But please talk to your people, all your friends and family, that they can support the advancement of science too, from wherever they are in the
Hmm.
whole spectrum. So where will your brain go then? Where's this study? Did you say it's in Virginia? The study that,
Um, sending it to both of them, both major places. So I'm going to have some of it, or have some of it go to VA, Boston University VA,
yeah.
um, and then I'm going to have some go to Dr. Pearl with the National
Oh,
Institute of
at the
Health.
VA. Yeah,
Mhm.
Dr. Pearl's doing some really great work. So
Yes,
that
he is.
that's
He's a
awesome.
really, really nice guy.
Yeah, everybody speaks very highly of him. He's done a lot for veterans, which is fantastic. So, okay, this is the part where I ask you, do you have any advice for people who've gone through things similar to you? And what you've been through is a lot, Cody. I mean, not only the blast injury, and I've spoken to people with blast injury, and that has a certain set of symptoms, but the physicality of yours, you're right, is something I hadn't really talked to people about before. So, and the fact that you bounced around a little bit trying to get help and felt like none of that was effective, is there a way other people can save time and get what they need a little more quickly?
Um, Biggest thing is be your own advocate. You really, really have to be your own advocate. You have to do your own research. There's a lot of stuff out there. Like I know the organization my wife works for, they put all that information out there that they can about TBI and TBI treatments and everything like that. And they're not the only one. It's out there. It's a matter of finding it, and you're not going to find it just going to the doctors, the VA, they said, or doctors even in the civilian market. It's just not a common thing that a lot of them deal with.
Yeah,
So you really, really, really have to be your own advocate, and you have to
yeah,
realize that because it's something newer and a lot of people aren't ready to deal with, it's going to take some time to find what makes you comfortable in life with it.
that's very good advice for a lot of different things. You know what I mean? You really do have to educate yourself and not rely on the information coming to somebody else who's going to advise you, especially in all things medical. Um, Cody, you've been through a lot. I know I've said that a bunch of times, and you're like, yeah, 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 lady. But I really appreciate you talking about it so candidly and taking the time. So many of the things that you have already done in your own treatment will help future generations by a ton. So before they even get their hands on your brain, they're learning a ton from you. And I just want you to know I really admire what you've done.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You bet. Thanks for joining us today, Cody. It's been wonderful meeting you. I really appreciate the time you've spent.
Thanks for having me
Okay.
again.
Oh, all right. Take care, sir.
You too.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Coming Home Well podcast with your guest host, Tish Hevel. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and a review. If you're interested in pre-registering for brain donation, please visit braindonorproject.org. Follow us on Instagram at ComingHomeWellPodcast_BTS. Thank you for listening to Coming Home Well.